Is it just me, or do Liverpool look like they're getting better and better in each waking moment? We cannot accept mediocrity, said Arne Slot after defeating Wolves 2-1 on matchday 6. Wolves have only won one game all season, and it was against another team that have also only won one game all season. Yet, they gave Liverpool a good run for their money in this one. Liverpool looked like they had a lot of things to work on, and since then, I think they've worked on those things because this team has continued to build steam in extraordinary fashion, improving in so many aspects, emerging as prime contenders for everything. All the while, people are slowly forgetting a simple fact. This shouldn't be happening. Liverpool should not be as good as they are this soon. But they are, and they've shown that they're like the Hydra. You cut off one head, another grows in its place. How are they doing this? Hello, hope you're doing well. Welcome back. I'm Tinashe. The Premier League has a very big problem. A bold Dutch manager, not that one, and he is relentless. I started writing this video after Liverpool beat Brighton for the second time in a week. And I'll try to say this from as unbiased a perspective as I possibly can. If I were just a casual watching the Premier League, didn't have a team to support, and I just wanted to watch a team consistently from a purely entertainment perspective, I can see why Liverpool would be a top pick. These guys, just again, from a purely entertainment perspective and from a winning perspective, obviously, you just can't really beat them right now in English football. Against Brighton, we saw that in full force. Brighton were so positive. They scored first, and I thought they were unfortunate to not take a larger lead. But then, as is customary this season, we see this strong, forceful rally from the home side in the second half. 2 goals in 2 minutes, job done. Which I guess explains just one of the reasons for why this team is so worth watching. Second half FC. They maintain their viewing value throughout the entire contest, and for some reason, it seems like the real game only begins in the second half for them. And this is perhaps the biggest strength that Arne Slot has exhibited since he's come into, one of the biggest and most stressful jobs in the entire football industry. Being able to do rapid analysis on your opponents, make those changes on the fly, and have the results to show for it. But maybe we shouldn't actually be that surprised. Jurgen Klopp might not have the best reputation in Germany right now, but he is a Liverpool legend. And I know that it's been talked about quite a lot, but I really think that it needs emphasizing that the final parting gift that this man left with his club was rebuilding them in an extraordinary fashion for the next guy to come in and just take over. It's hard to imagine that only 2 years ago, Liverpool were rocking a pensioners midfield of Jordan Henderson and the undead corpse of Fabinho. It looked like they've forgotten how to play football, seriously, or at the very least forgotten how to play their own game. All of Darwin Núñez, Luis Diaz, Cody Gakpo, Ryan Gravenberch, Wataru Endo, Dominic Szoboszlai, and Alexis McAllister were brought into the club within the last 2 years. Really, just sit down and ponder that. In fact, if you look at all of their incoming players since the start of 2022, the hit rate has been colossal. They've got wizards in their scouting and analyst team, I swear. The guys that don't look too great initially have mostly come right and have found really solid places for themselves. If we're going to talk about this season in particular, the guy that comes to mind the most is Ryan Gravenberch. Not a hit under Klopp, in comes a new manager, and boom. I hate it. The defensive midfielder they've been after for so long and Liverpool fans were so desperate for was under their noses the entire time. They're scoring great goals, they're not conceding a ton. This Liverpool team is like a laxative, they just go straight through you. They hate conceding goals more than Diddy loves baby oil. And all of that is thanks to Arne Slot. I'm not going to sit here and pretend like I've been following Arne Slot's entire career all the way from playing to now being Liverpool manager, and you shouldn't either, because if you are, you're lying. But from everything that I've read about him, stretching back to those playing days, it makes sense why he's come into Liverpool now and he's doing as well as he is. In his final years of playing, which mostly saw him hang out in the second division of Dutch football, he's said to have already been behaving like a manager well before retirement. After retiring in 2013 at 35, he began to build up a record of overperforming expectations almost everywhere that he's gone as an assistant coach and as a head coach up until now. First, he took on an academy coaching role with PEC Zwolle, the team he started his career off with, which also happened to be the team he ended his career with. Even in those early days, he was being recognized as being meticulous and tactically dialed in. A year later, he was off to Cambuur, firstly as an assistant. After some bad results that led to a relegation, the incumbent coach was sacked. Slot was then promoted to interim head coach in mid-season 2016, and despite all the chaos that ensued, he very nearly secured promotion for the team. They then beat Ajax, of all teams, in the KNVB Cup to reach the semi-finals. The first time in the history of the club. AZ Alkmaar unfortunately beat them in that semi-final run, but they were so impressed by Slot that they poached him the following year. First as an assistant, then as the head coach 2 years later. From all the articles, comments, interviews, and other forms of media that I've digested about this guy, he seems to be many things. He communicates very well with his players and focuses on personal relationships. He's adaptable to the circumstances of his players and coaching staff and improves younger and senior players because of this. He's tactically versatile and isn't afraid to try new things on the go. And perhaps his biggest green flag is that he knows how to efficiently use the resources at his disposal, something that he's done at just about every club that he's been involved with. In his first season with AZ, he was doing exceptionally well and battling neck and neck with Ajax, of all teams, for the title. Unfortunately, the season was called off due to the COVID outbreak. But when it was called off, AZ and Ajax were in a deadlock, 56 points each. Technically, if the season were concluded and champion was named, Ajax would have won on goal difference. However, Ajax might be a little lucky that that was the case, because AZ beat them twice in the head-to-head, both home and away, and Ajax, who started the season well, were dropping points faster than Jennifer Lopez is deleting her chat history. That's the last Diddy joke, I promise. Anything could have happened, but he wouldn't have to wait too long to get his hands on the Eredivisie title, as he won that honor only 2 years later, this time with Feyenoord. He very nearly won the Conference League too. Make no mistake, Liverpool have a savant on their hands right now. I know that when Klopp first announced his departure, there were a lot of names thrown into the hat of who Liverpool would sign next as manager and what have you, but it's hard for me to imagine that any of those other managers would be doing so well with Liverpool as quickly as Slot is. But then again, it's the exact same way that it's hard to imagine that Slot would be doing so well as he's currently doing. In any case, let's move on to the actual team and talk about what they've been doing and why they've been so good. On brand with the type of football that Slot has employed at all of his previous positions, this Liverpool side can play some very intense, hard-working ball. And that may sound similar to what we've seen in the past from Klopp sides in particular. There are major differences here. Now, they aren't as aggressive in pushing the ball into the opposition's half and getting those goals. What we've seen now is a bit more of a transition to more of a possession-orientated game, slower, methodical play. They're more focused on producing higher quality chances now and have improved on something that they were already phenomenal at, if we're all being honest: precision. Last year, they boasted a 35% shot accuracy stat over the course of the year. This year, even though we don't have a big sample space, that stat has gone up 10 points to 45%. Against Leverkusen, they exhibited that precision in attack by showing their full toolkit. For the first goal, the movement on Curtis Jones is just a wonder. It sets everything up. Leverkusen are pinned back as Liverpool slowly make their way forward. Jones sees Leverkusen's midfield line shift, knows his man, Jonathan Tah, can't follow him, and moves into the vacated space. Because of that, he has all the time in the world to turn around and face the goal. More time than he really should be afforded, if we're all being completely honest. I think Chabi might have a word with his guys there. Luis Diaz gets the memo, backtracks into Tabsoba's shoulder, loses him, and boom. Their second goal shows you their accuracy on the break. They win the ball back, and in a flash, they venture forward. Leverkusen do very well to get men back by the time the ball reaches the final third, but the men in red just move the ball so quickly, it doesn't even matter, and each ball is just pin perfect. Salah, Gakpo, wow. Another example came against Brentford, their opening goal. Luis Diaz and Diogo Jota showed why a defensive corner is sometimes the best attacking set piece. And then another against Aston Villa. Two more blistering counter-attacking moves, 2-0. They remain the best defensive side on all of English football, and they aren't giving their opponents that many chances, or at the very least, they aren't giving them that many high-quality chances. And most of this stems from the back and the middle. 6 goals conceded after 11 games, 4 of those in games against the current top 5. I've always thought Forest were worthy European champions. Yes, I watched those games live. No, I won't be taking further questions. Now, that's not to say that Liverpool are impenetrable, though. Against Chelsea, we saw what happens when they come across a strong side in both attack and defense. Chelsea were all over Liverpool, and on a different day, under different circumstances, circumstances, Chelsea could have come away with a draw, maybe even a win in that match. There were refereeing decisions that could have gone differently. There were chances that went a whisker away. Chelsea saw more of the ball overall and they were pretty commanding. Now, if they can play like that more often and less like how they played against Man United the other week, then the Premier League will have a pretty big problem. But even despite how Chelsea played, Liverpool managed to avoid careless errors and see the game out and stay on top of the pile. Something else that I want to bring up that specifically pertains to Liverpool's decrease in playing speed or tempo or whatever you want to call it is that Liverpool aren't playing at 100% like they were under Klopp, but they are playing so well regardless. That should worry people, especially when it comes to their ability to sustain and maintain a title challenge throughout the course of the whole season. Klopp's consistent intensity was one of their biggest strengths and biggest critiques. Notoriously, the team underwent a roughly 2-year cycle of high form followed by a drop-off season. Reasons for the most part included injury, turnover, and really just fatigue. But if you recall, this wasn't just an issue in those, 2-year periods. This was happening within their monster seasons too. Towards the end, they started dropping points, players looked incredibly fatigued, and it makes sense when your team's running 11 plus kilometers per game 2 to 3 times a week. Alright, let's move on to some notable players I want to talk about. Virgil van Dijk is as good as ever, Ibrahima Konate is as improved as ever, and Kelleher is making a lot of people forget that Alisson hasn't been properly fit for 2 years now? The midfield doesn't allow for glaring leaks, and Trent Alexander-Arnold is, Trent Alexander-Arnold. There is a fear that he may end up leaving the club at the end of the year, and I'm not gonna lie, if the rumors that Madrid are after him as their #1 priority for right back are true, then this is not looking too good. Regardless of how they've been performing, Real Madrid is Real Madrid. This is a job that's been occupied for over a decade, and Carvajal, he's on his last legs, let's be real. Also, the man has already achieved everything he possibly can with Liverpool. Also, I'm seeing a steep decrease in the amount of slander that this man is getting for his defensive contributions. The change from not playing as much rock and roll football, the use of the double pivot now, all of this has meant that he doesn't need to venture into the midfield that much and invert. So with less emphasis on width and directness, he's become more of a traditional right back in some ways, in terms of on-field positioning at the very least. And because of that, his defensive side has been shining bright. Like I've already said, the sample size that we can use for this season when it comes to directly comparing to last season isn't as high just yet, but even still, just for the sake of it, here are some, defensive stats per 90 for Alexander-Arnold over the last 2 seasons. These are all from fbref.com, so you can check them out for yourself if you want. The heat maps are from SofaScore, and I honestly can't believe how much of a difference his defensive output has been on a per 90 perspective. Almost everything from tackles won, 1v1 battles, and errors have improved. A stat line that pops up as worse is interceptions, but I think that can be explained purely from the fact that he's not in the midfield as much. More of a risk-averse approach has resulted in less of those Hollywood diagonal balls being played, but he's still playing those balls and others like them, and we know that because he remains as one of the chief playmakers. I rate that his form can also be attributed to his confidence across the board in every aspect, and it's translated to his international career too. 3 man-of-the-match performances with the Three Lions out of 4 since the season began. This man played 5 minutes of knockout football with England in the Euros, where they went all the way to the finals. Southgate. At several times over the last couple of years, Liverpool's right-sided centre-back has had to double as a right-back quite a lot to cover for the absent Trent Alexander-Arnold. That's happening less and less frequently this year. I think Ibrahima Konate appreciates that quite a bit, and I would say that's contributed to his form because he's looked much better. Curtis Jones has come a long way from when I first saw him play a couple years ago. He's looking very confident, and that confidence, it couldn't have come at a better time for Liverpool. Dominic Szoboszlai seems like he's just overthinking everything these days. But hopefully all this increased competition does nothing but sharpen his senses. Ryan Gravenberch, who I mentioned at the beginning, is doing really well too. Nothing gets past him. And his relationship with Van Dijk, all the defenders behind him, and also with the most non-Argentinian looking Argentine man, McAllister, is enviable. I haven't spoken too much about Liverpool's attack, and that's for a reason. It's because I just don't think I need to. Mohamed Salah is in his 8th season with the club. He's never scored less than 23 goals in a single season. He's only assisted less than 10 times twice. We already know the deal. He's never been bad, other than the odd few games. This year is no different. And even when he's not playing well, he's still scoring goals, so who cares? Case in point, Brighton. He missed a couple chances, he wasn't at his best, and then he does this. He recently became Liverpool's all-time top scorer in the Premier League, overtaking Robbie Fowler. He really went ahead and drew a line of separation between the two. I can definitely see him finishing his Premier League career in at least fourth, bar something very unexpected. Luis Diaz was rumored to be on his way out pretty recently too, but I think Liverpool will be grateful that he hasn't gone because he's become a monster in front of goal. Nobody could ever fault him for his lack of effort and overall ability. I've always personally rated him, but I did think that he was wasteful. Joke's on me because he's kicked things into a whole new gear. Cody Gakpo also always highly rated. I remember really wanting him to go to Man United after seeing him in the World Cup in 22. Never happened. Now he's a great Liverpool player, so I'm really happy about that. And finally, the Greek freak, Kostas Tsimikas. Now, don't ask me why, but for some reason, during the Liverpool-Leverkusen match, I found myself kind of exclusively watching Tsimikas at several different points over the game. If this is what a backup left back looks like, then Liverpool have it pretty good, because he had a solid game. Uses both feet, distributes well under pressure. He was a bit lucky that Jeremy Frimpong handled the ball, meaning the goal he scored after was disallowed, but that's neither here nor there. Liverpool have lost one game, they've drawn one game, and they've won everything else. The Jurgen Klopp era of Liverpool has been likened to the Bill Shankly era and how he reinvigorated the club from underachieving to elite. Now, I'm not here to argue about the differences in eras and landscapes and all that other stuff. If you want to, you can do so in the comments, but what I do want to talk about is that when Klopp left Liverpool, a lot of people were of the opinion that they were going to be destitute and in a really bad space. We've seen a lot of clubs go this route, you know, a legendary manager leaves, they're in a really tough spot and things just aren't the same. Surely this would be no different, right? Well, it seems that a lot of people were focusing on the possible negatives and not as many people were lasering in on the potential positives, because what a lot of people forgot was that when Bill Shankly left Liverpool, the club went on to have the most successful 10-year period of any English club in history. 7 First Division titles, 4 European Cups, a UEFA Cup, and more. Suggesting that this is what's happening right now is obviously ridiculous at this point in time and way too early of a call to make. All I'm saying is that if people are going to play the comparison game on negative outcomes, then we're all obligated to play it with positive ones too.